Chapter 39-36. Luo Qingchen knit her brows. She quickly returned to the police station and bailed out Chen Shi. Although she only had 2 hours, she had to find a way to let Chen Shi see his mother no matter what. Without knowing why, the terrible Chen Shi in Luo Qingchen's eyes had become much bigger. It was probably because she believed his words. Since things were like this, she felt that he had no reason to lie to her. Not to mention that whether a person was real or fake, the eyes wouldn't lie. Luo Qingchen didn't enter the villa and waited for him at the door. During this time, Du Jiuxing sent her a text and asked her a strange question. After Luo Qingchen replied, there was no more news from Du Jiuxing. When she brought Chen Shi back to the police station, she heard that Du Jiuxing was gone. Luo Qingchen was suddenly a bit panicked as she wildly called him. Over and over again, but no one picked up each time. Her heart instantly jumped to her throat because this feeling was all too familiar. How could he be gone? Wasn't he in the interrogation room the entire time? Lu Xian scratched the back of his head and replied, I don't know either. Big Brother Xing should have been interrogating Chen Shi last, but I don't know why he suddenly disappeared. What do you mean suddenly? Luo Qingchen felt that this was very funny. How could a person suddenly disappear? The police station was so tight that not even a fly could fly out. How could he disappear? Have you seen the surveillance? I've already seen it. So Big Brother Jiuxing. Where was the last place Du Jiuxing disappeared to? Lu Xian thought about it and said, the archives on the 3rd floor. He said he was going to take something, but when we went to look for him, he was gone. I'll take a look at the surveillance first. Lu Xian was right. Du Jiuxing rarely appeared at the end of the surveillance, and the last place he appeared was the archive. He wasn't someone who would disappear for no reason. Moreover, he knew very well that she would be worried. Even if he had to do something, he would definitely tell her in advance. For him to disappear like this, he must have met with danger. But Glazer and Oya's group couldn't even protect themselves. How could they take Du Jiuxing away? Not to mention that Du Jiuxing wasn't someone that anyone could take away. Standing in front of the monitor, Luo Qingchen fell into silence. For a moment, she felt the entire screen go dark. Something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what it was. His heart was in a mess, and he couldn't calm down to think. At this time, Chen Shi, who was still in the interrogation room, said that he wanted to see her. Luo Qingchen was very anxious. She didn't want to meet him, but Chen Shi said he could provide her with some clues, so she went. I heard that Du Jiuxing disappeared. Just say what you want to say. Luo Qingchen rubbed her temples. I really don't have time right now. I know. Chen Shi said with a nod. Actually, according to what I know, other than Glazer, the EMP group, and us, there is another force that is looking for the Permitha holy water. There is another group? Luo Qingchen was surprised as her back suddenly froze. I'm not sure if it's a group or a single person, but it could be a group. Chen Shi knit his brows. You should know that in this situation, if someone suspects that the Permitha holy water is on Du Jiuxing and wants to make a move against him, that person can't be Glazer, Oya, or me, so who could it be? Chapter 39-37. It had to be said, although whether it was in the past or now, she and Chen Shi had always been on opposite side. However, what he said now was not without reason. There was another force. Who was it? Luo Qingchen left the interrogation room and walked towards the archives room step by step. She suddenly thought of something and took out her phone to see the last text Du Jiuxing sent her. When did Senior Superintendent Wang Meng find her? Why did Du Jiuxing ask her this question? It wasn't because the answer was important, but rather because the question itself was important. After that, Luo Qingchen suddenly heard footsteps slowly approaching. Duh, 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 duh. These footsteps made her heart a bit flustered, but she forced herself to calm down. Qingchen. Wang Meng's voice slowly sounded as he stood at the stairs not far away. There had been a problem with the lights on the third floor since a month ago. Sometimes it would turn on and sometimes it wouldn't turn on. Now it seemed even darker. Captain Wang, Luo Qingchen said with a worried look, I'm a bit worried about Big Brother Jiuxing. Captain Lu said that Big Brother Jiuxing went to the archives room last and the surveillance ended here, so I came to take a look. We've already sent people to look for him. You don't need to worry. Wang Meng looked at Luo Qingchen and said, Did Jiuxing say anything to you? I'm worried that he's hiding something from us and doing something dangerous. Wang Meng's voice was very normal, but without knowing why, Luo Qingchen felt an inexplicable chill coming from it. It was a fear that came from the depths of her heart. Her brain unconsciously began to remember if she had a gun or not. If I knew, I wouldn't have come here to look for him. Luo Qingchen gave a deep sigh. Captain Wang, he'll be fine, right? Relax, Jiuxing has experienced many dangerous things over the years and has never been hurt. This time he disappeared from the police station. I definitely won't let anything happen to him. Wang Meng looked at her and said, It's late. You should go back and rest. You don't look well. I'd better go to the office and wait. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath and said, Then I'll go downstairs, President Wang. All right. Luo Qingchen walked neither fast nor slow. Even when she was about to reach the stairs, she didn't deliberately speed up, because she knew that Wang Meng had been watching her from behind. The moment she left his line of sight, Luo Qingchen inexplicably felt her legs go soft. A woman's sixth sense had always been very accurate, let alone her. There was definitely something wrong with Wang Meng. Could it be that Big Brother Jiuxing found a problem with him and fell into danger? If there was a problem with Wang Meng, then the whole thing could be explained. According to Chun Shi, there was another unknown faction that was also searching for the Permitha holy water. Let's assume that this faction was Wang Meng. Then why was he looking for the Permitha holy water? Wait a minute. Luo Qingchen suddenly thought of something as the fear in her heart increased layer by layer. If she didn't remember wrong, Wang Meng had a son. But his son had died in an accident during a mission, but this matter was at least 7-8 years ago. A person who had died for 7-8 years, how could the Permitha holy water save him? This was impossible. Could it be that his son wasn't dead? When Luo Qingchen's heart was filled with doubt, she received an unknown text. If you want to save Du Jiuxing, come to warehouse number 285 in the western suburbs alone in an hour. Chapter 39-38. Before heading to the warehouse mentioned on the phone, Luo Qingchen went home and changed her clothes. The necklace she bought online 2 days ago had arrived and she had received a delivery before leaving. Half an hour later, in warehouse number 285 in the western suburbs, Luo Qingchen had already told Lu Xian about this before coming. After all, this wasn't the time for a person to die alone. She didn't have any powers, so it wasn't suitable. The western suburbs wasn't a remote place, but Luo Qingchen had been looking for warehouse number 285 for a long time. It was very quiet all around. She tightly held the pistol in her hand as she walked in step by step. The warehouse was very big, having a total of 4 to 5 floors. Because it was in a place with dense shade, she couldn't see the inside of the room clearly. When Luo Qingchen walked forward, she could hear the wind in her ears. The warehouse on the first floor was very empty. There was only a large freezer in the middle. Before she even came close, she could feel a chill coming from it. She took a deep breath and her right hand tightly held the necklace in front of her chest as a cold glow appeared in her eyes. She wasn't afraid because she believed that it wasn't Du Jiuxing inside. Lu Xian's voice came from her right ear. What is it? Did something happen? Luo Qingchen tapped her ear twice to show she was ignoring him. Looking at it from afar, this giant freezer gave people a very cold feeling, but when Luo Qingchen came closer, she found that there wasn't anything inside. There were just white flower petals neatly covering it. It seemed to be a single word. A single kai. She slightly knit her brows and shined her flashlight upstairs. The wooden stairs seemed to have no end. She carefully walked up to the second floor. The room on the second floor was darker than the first floor, and there was an LCD screen in the middle. When she came to the second floor, the LCD screen lit up. The sudden brightness made it a bit hard for her eyes to adjust. There was a playful voice in her ears, and there was a 5-year-old child on the screen. "Mom, I want to be a doctor when I grow up." "Why do you want to be a doctor?" The kind voice that was not in the frame asked slowly. "Because Granny's health is not good. If I become a doctor, I can treat Granny by myself in the future, and Granny won't need to go to the hospital anymore." A childish voice rang out, creating an incomparably heartwarming scene. But in the next second, a stern male voice rang out, "You're not allowed to be a doctor. Aya, the child is still young, why are you so fierce? My son must be a loyal and courageous man who serves the motherland and protects the people." The man roared in a rough voice, "I won't allow it, absolutely not." In an instant, the camera went dark. The originally pitch-black second floor suddenly became incomparably bright. Luo Qingchen covered her eyes with her hands. It took her a long time to see the scene in front of her. There were ice coffins all around, exactly the same as the one she saw in the No Man's Land. The only difference was that this was an ice coffin, not a freezer. The person lying in the ice coffin in front of her was none other than Oya, the leader of the EMP organization. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Whether it was the EMP organization or the ex-mysterious organization, they had been fighting each other for many years. She never thought that it would be someone else's wedding dress. This person, no one in the world would have thought of it. But since Big Brother Jiu Xing thought of it, she should have thought of it. Chapter 39:39. Going around the layers of ice coffins, Luo Qingchen closed her eyes and a cold light flashed in her eyes as she said, "You should come out now." In this kind of empty place, her voice was very ethereal. After a few seconds, she could hear layers of echoes. No one replied, but she could vaguely hear the sound of someone sighing. Luo Qingchen didn't say anything as she quickly ran to the third floor and fired a shot at the window. There was a ping sound as the glass shattered and a man in a black suit appeared in front of her eyes. The moonlight slowly shined in from the window. She didn't say anything as her right hand reached for the switch on the side and turned on the lights. The man was stunned, but his expression quickly returned to normal. He turned to look at Luo Qingchen. Luo Qingchen also looked at him. Her hands were behind her as she tightly held the gun in her hand. "Qingchen, why are you here?" Wang Meng's expression didn't change, but his voice was filled with surprise. She gave a shrug and pretended to be nervous as she said, "Why is Captain Wang here? Did you also receive an anonymous message?" "No." Wang Meng shook his head and said, "It was Jiu Xing who called me and told me to come here. I was also very confused. But I was worried about danger, so I came here alone to take a look." "So it's like this." Luo Qingchen let out a long sigh of relief. "I feel much more at ease seeing Captain Wang. When I was walking up, I felt a bit nervous." "It's fine, I've already looked around, there isn't any danger." Wang Meng said with a serious expression, "Qingchen, come here, I'll show you something." At that moment, Luo Qingchen's mind suddenly felt like it was a lifetime ago. She had already experienced this feeling. There were many things that were about to be settled. "What is it?" Luo Qingchen walked over to Wang Meng step by step. When she was 1 meter away from him, she quickly raised the gun and shot at his heart. Her guess couldn't be wrong, it had to be wrong. "Humph!" The other party groaned, his expression slightly unsightly. He clutched his chest and looked at Luo Qingchen. "You, what are you doing? You're wearing a bulletproof vest?" Luo Qingchen sneered. "That's right. How could you not wear one?" She was confident that her marksmanship was accurate enough to hit Wang Meng's heart. Even if Wang Meng didn't die, he wouldn't have the strength to talk to her. "Are you the traitor of the Metropolitan Police Department?" Wang Meng clenched his teeth and said, Then don't blame me for being rude. The next second, Luo Qingchen raised her pistol again and said, Is it necessary for you to continue pretending? Didn't you ask me to come here for something? Wang Meng's expression suddenly changed. He said in a low voice, Then tell me, why am I doing this? Before answering your question, I want to ask something first. Luo Qingchen said through gritted teeth, Where is Du Jiusheng? Give it to me and I'll let you leave safely. Wang Meng took off his glasses and his eyes changed. If you let me see Big Brother Jiusheng, I'll give it to you. Luo Qingchen closed her eyes before opening them again. I just want him to live, everything else isn't important to me. He's fine, he's upstairs. Wang Meng pointed at the 4th floor. Not only is he upstairs, his old boss is also there. Luo Qingchen knit her brows and moved back step by step, heading to the 4th floor. Chapter 39-40. There was a large ice coffin around them, and Du Jiusheng and Glaze were chained to a stone pillar on the side. His face was very pale and his clothes were soaked in blood. He shouted when he saw her, Don't come over! In the end, he was a step behind and learned of Wang Meng's ulterior motives too late, causing him to be trapped. You really are skilled, you're all quite good at double acting as spies. Glaze taunted from the side, You never thought of this, right? You finally gave up your life. Du Jiusheng didn't respond, rather he looked at Luo Qingchen and said, Don't come over, this place is filled with traps. Relax. Wang Meng's cold voice came from behind, Comrade Luo Qingchen is much smarter than you. You've been in the EMP for all these years, why haven't you learned a single thing? He seemed to be talking to himself as he added, A wise man submits to circumstances. She doesn't have the Permitha holy water at all. Du Jiusheng looked at her and slightly knit his brows. Why do you admit to something you don't have? No, Big Brother Jiusheng. Luo Qingchen firmly shook her head. I have it. She took out a necklace with a small bottle from around her neck. Qingchen, sorry. Luo Qingchen looked at Wang Meng and said, I keep my words. Let him go and I'll give it to you. Wang Meng understood. It really is this necklace. He had done a lot of investigation, and the final conclusion was that Du Jiusheng had taken the Permitha holy water. But the Permitha holy water wasn't on him. He had only met with one person during this time. That person was Luo Qingchen. But he couldn't find any evidence. He wanted to make a move against Luo Qingchen, but he never thought that Du Jiusheng would be a step ahead of him. But in this world, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. He had endured all these years for his son to be revived. Everything was in his grasp. Let go of Big Brother Jiusheng and I'll give it to you. No problem. Wang Meng threw a bunch of keys on the ground and said, He's very similar to Kai. He's the one who resembles my son the most. For so many years, Shao Kai wasn't by my side, but I could always see Shao Kai in him. Luo Qingchen slowly bent down, picked up the key, and threw the necklace to Wang Meng. Wang Meng didn't lie, the key had indeed unlocked Du Jiusheng's handcuff. Big Brother Jiusheng, Du Jiusheng softly hugged her and patted her head. It's fine, nothing will happen. When Wang Meng received the necklace, he became extremely excited. He rushed to the largest ice coffin and said with his eyes wide open, Son, Daddy got the Permitha holy water. You don't have to keep sleeping. Luo Qingchen and Du Jiusheng looked at each other. She tapped the earpiece and Lu Xian's voice came out. You can aim now. When he came up just now, he fired a shot at the window to let Lu Xian and the others find a good position. Although they were on different floors, in this 40% area, the basic positions were the same. Wang Meng's trembling hands slowly opened the bottle of Permitha holy water and poured it into his son's mouth. Luo Qingchen softly pulled Du Jiusheng on the side and Du Jiusheng immediately understood, moving back a bit. When he took 2 steps back, Wang Meng roared out, No, impossible. Why isn't Shao Kai awake yet? Open your eyes. After taking 2 steps back, he could see the person in the ice coffin from this angle. Chapter 39-41. A man who was as thin as a match, even if he had been frozen for a long time, he was already covered in livor mortis. Quickly go. Du Jiuxing pulled her hand and ran down the stairs. Luo Qingchen felt her heart jump into her throat. Purring, purring, purring. There were gunshots behind them. Du Jiuxing pulled her hand as he said, "What you gave him was fake? His son is already like this." Luo Qingchen anxiously nodded. Even if it was real, there was no saving him. This was a person who had been dead for so many years. If this medicine was really that amazing, Einstein could have been revived. Wang Meng's angry roar came from the 4th floor. "Since my son can't be revived, you don't need to live either. All of you will be buried with him. This is bad." When Du Jiuxing's voice sounded in her ears, Luo Qingchen tightly threw herself into his embrace. No matter what, whether it was life or death, she had to be with him. But Du Jiuxing still protected her in the end. There were times when a person's life was very short and they couldn't experience that many ups and downs. But everything they experienced was definitely unique. In a daze, Luo Qingchen seemed to hear the system's voice and that familiar prompt. But when she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the chaos space. Her vision was very blurry and she couldn't even hear clearly. She couldn't use any strength at all. She wanted to move, but she found that she couldn't move at all. Was this a hospital? Luo Qingchen closed her eyes and the doctors around her began to check her. Her vision and senses were recovering bit by bit. Her memories were a bit blurry, but a familiar figure appeared in front of her. Where was Du Jiuxing? Where was Du Jiuxing? She wanted to ask, but she found that after she was injected, her vision turned dark again and she lost consciousness. When she woke up again, it was late at night and there were many people around her. She blinked and blinked before saying with difficulty, "Jiuxing. Where is Du Jiuxing?" In the intensive care unit. Lu Xian frowned and said, "You've already walked through the gates of hell, don't let your imagination run wild for the time being." Hearing that Du Jiuxing was still alive, Luo Qingchen let out a long sigh of relief. At least he was still alive. At least she had a chance to see him again. Luo Qingchen was no longer sleepy as she lay on the bed. She was waiting for herself to regain her strength so that she could walk from her ward to his. However, time did not seem to wait for her. In just one night, she had already heard the news of his cardiac arrest 5 times in his ward. Luo Qingchen felt that she had no more time to wait, enduring the pain in his body. He rushed out of the hospital and ran all the way home to grab something. She didn't know if she could save Du Jiuxing, but at least, if it didn't work, she didn't want to be alone in this life. Without Nianin, she had nothing to worry about. It was just a strange and bizarre incident, and he didn't seem to have suffered any pain. Just treat it as a side story with Mr. Du Jiuxing. He hoped that the next time they met, there would be a happy ending. Standing in the hospital room, Luo Qingchen felt like she was using her last breath to walk to Du Jiuxing's side. There was a phrase that suddenly rang in her mind: "The other shore flower blooms and the world dies." Some 1,000 years of memories began to fill her mind. She opened the small bottle and dripped the so-called other shore sacred water onto Du Jiuxing's lip. The air seemed to be filled with a faint fragrance. In the next second, her vision turned black, and she fell into a deep sleep. When she opened her eyes, she was stunned. She was the Chaos Space. A welcome back, host. Chapter 39-42. Do you know? Some people were destined to change over time. For example, Du Jiuxing, who came back from the gates of hell. He came back, but the person he loved the most couldn't come back. It was like their story never had a beginning, but it had already ended. A city was still a city, but there was a mysterious organization called Mu Qing in the past few years. No one knew when this organization existed, they just knew that they were looking for something. When they were looking for this thing, they were still desperately researching it. Every day, every month, every year, it went back and forth, never stopping. In a luxurious room, A man was standing in front of the window on the 33rd floor with his hands crossed and a serious look on his face. A man and a woman walked in. Both of them had a serious look on their faces. The 21st experiment failed. Do you want to continue, ninth god? The man asked. Continue. The materials in the north have been gathered. Do you want to continue? Du Jiuxing slowly turned around and his dark as ink eyes had a cold glow. He raised the gun in his right hand and directly shot the woman in the head. Ninth god. The man was shocked as his face turned pale. He kneeled down with a dong sound. This subordinate's words are all true, really. There isn't a single lie. Du Jiuxing's cold voice slowly rang out. You don't have it, but that doesn't mean she doesn't. It's impossible to gather all the materials in the north. She is lying. So it's like this. The man let out a long sigh. This was the 5th year since Mu Qing was established. This man named Du Jiuxing had already become the absolute ruler of a city, whether it was the underworld or the legal world. The police wanted to catch him, but they never had any evidence. Every time he came to the police station, there would be a cold glow in his eyes, but there would always be a smile on his lips. That was a smile that was close to taunting. 5 years, an entire 5 years. He had never forgotten what had happened that night. He didn't know if it was the Permethau holy water that saved him or if it was her falling figure that made his soul that wanted to leave his body return to his body. In short, he woke up and she closed her eyes forever. You don't have to report your failures in the future. Du Jiuxing narrowed his cold eyes. This oath, unless it succeeds, it will continue forever. Yes, deal with it. I won't be at the base tonight. Du Jiuxing took a step forward and his expression didn't change at all, but no one knew how heavy his heart was. It had been 5 years since she left him. Without any rescue, without any hope, she left him just like that. Perhaps such an ending was worse than death. It was an underground ice cellar. When they entered, the temperature was -12 degrees Celsius. Du Jiuxing was wearing very thin clothes, but he didn't feel cold at all. Her body was placed in the center of the underground ice cellar, surrounded by flowers covered in frost. Against the icy blue light, it looked exceptionally beautiful. Du Jiuxing came forward step by step and squatted down in front of her ice coffin. She closed her eyes, her skin as white as snow. At first glance, she looked like a sleeping beauty in a Western story. He just fell asleep peacefully, yes. She just fell asleep quietly. Chapter 39-43. I've been busy these past 2 days, so I haven't been able to see you. You won't be angry, right? Du Jiuxing slowly raised his right hand and tapped her nose. I've worked so hard over the years and I've finally seen a bit of progress. Don't worry, you'll be back by my side soon. They went from meeting to knowing each other. It was like the story had just begun, like they had never enjoyed happiness together. But God was so cruel, directly taking her away from his side. He didn't even give him a chance to turn back. No, how could he allow this to happen? No, it was definitely impossible. Qingchen, do you know? Mu Qing's organization has come to this point. I can suddenly understand why Wang Meng set up this trap, desperately trying to save his son. Because everyone has a so-called obsession in their heart, and my obsession is you. Du Jiuxing said this as his eyes couldn't help turning red. Everyone thought that for a cold man like him who killed people like scything flax, it was impossible for him to cry. But the fact was that he had never cried since he came to this ice cellar. It was said that men had gold under their knees and men didn't cry easily. But the sadness in his heart made it so that he couldn't control himself. He had done so many heartless things, killed so many people, and ruined so many people's happiness. He only had one goal, which was to wake up Luo Qingchen. In the past, he felt that after entering the police department, for the country and the people, it didn't matter even if he had to sacrifice his life. Because he had nothing to worry about, he didn't fear death, but now he suddenly felt that everything he did before was a joke. He protected those people who weren't related to him, and in the end, he lost the most important person to him. Based on what? If God gave him a choice again, he would definitely choose to give the Permitha holy water to Glazer. Then he would resign as a police officer and hide his identity with her. It didn't matter even if he had to wander the world. But it took him too long to realize this. It was so long that she had left him for 5 years, but every night he would dream of her. He dreamed of their first meeting. He dreamed of her sparkling eyes calling him Big Brother Jiuxing. He dreamed of her blushing cheeks when she said that she liked him. Every time he dreamed of such a scene, even if he knew that he was in a dream, he still hoped that he wouldn't have to wake up. How nice would it be to sleep forever? He leaned against her ice coffin and rambled on about some of the things that had happened recently. He didn't know if she could hear him, but it seemed that as long as he said it out loud, his heart would feel a lot more at ease. Perhaps it was because she was by his side. Coming out of the underground ice cellar, he drove to the largest experimental base. This was the place he used to research the Permitha holy water. Back then, Wang Meng's efforts were not in vain. He had left behind some clues. Du Jiuxing followed his clues and improved step by step, although the most recent experiment still failed. However, he knew very well that he was not far from success. However, this not far meant that he had to wait for another 10 years. He became more and more irritable, almost to the point of insanity. Gradually, he killed more and more people, and the methods he used became more and more extreme. But he was really smart, and the police still couldn't find any evidence to arrest him. Chapter 3944. Even if everyone in the Metropolitan Police Department knew that he was the main culprit of these accidents, they also knew that Du Jiuxing was the same as Wang Meng, falling into a demonic trap. It was as if he had drawn a circle around himself, trapping himself in it endlessly. It was still a 33-story building, but it wasn't the same room as before. It was said that the older a person was, the calmer their mind would be, but he wasn't the same. As time passed, he became more and more violent, more and more eccentric. He killed more and more people. Sometimes just because of a single sentence, because of a small matter, he didn't hesitate to kill people. He clearly knew that he could let them go, but he wouldn't. There was a saying in the Mu Qing organization, "Hell is empty and the devil is in the human world." He admitted that he was a devil. He admitted that he was a ruthless person. It didn't matter. He didn't care about going to hell, as long as the person he cared about could live. So what if he went to hell? So what if he never reincarnated? He didn't care about this, he never cared. There was no lack of good people in this world, but good people would always die more than bad people. When he was in deep thought, someone suddenly shouted, "Ninth God, it's a success, we've succeeded." Du Jiuxing felt his heart skip a beat and his dark eyes finally lit up. After taking the Permitha holy water that he had studied for 15 years, he came to the underground ice cellar again. She didn't seem to have changed after all these years, her skin was still very white. When she silently laid there, it was like she was sleeping. But he was different, he had already become much older. He was clearly in his 30s, but he already had white hair. He gently poured the Permitha holy water into her mouth, just like what she did to him 15 years ago. The only difference was that Luo Qinchen didn't wake up like him. Dida 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 dida. Time ticked by, but she was still lying there quietly, showing no signs of waking up. Du Jiuxing panicked. At that moment it was like he saw the same expression as Wang Meng in the past. No, impossible, definitely impossible. He screamed at the top of his lungs like a child. His hands trembled endlessly as he poured the water from the bottle into Luo Qingchen's mouth. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed, half an hour passed. There was still no reaction from her. After 15 years, the experiment seemed to have succeeded, but the effect of the so-called Permitha holy water had failed. Despair, endless despair, Perhaps the Permitha holy water had always been a myth. After all, no one had ever been able to use it to save someone. But he couldn't accept it. He really couldn't accept it. Waves of pain came from his heart, and some strange images began to flash before his eyes. His moon-white robe suddenly turned into a set of dark red armor. Blood dyed his clothes red, and his gentle eyes were filled with killing intent. He killed 1, 2, 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000. He didn't seem to know why he killed so many people. He only knew that he was in as much pain as he was now. Only when his heart stopped beating did the pain slowly dissipate. He knew that he was dead, he would fall into hell like this, at least he could see her one last time in hell. Then it didn't matter if he reincarnated forever, it was fine as long as he could see her once more. End. Chapter 39:45. This world was very dark and then you came, bringing the stars and moon to light up the night. Du Jiusheng. My story, there was no beginning, no ending, and no brilliance. But I clearly had nothing, but I was greedy for this world because this world had you. From the first time we met to the first time we parted, it didn't seem like much time had passed. I didn't say anything, but I could see that your eyes were filled with me. I didn't know why, but I liked this feeling very much. I liked being able to keep having these eyes. You thought that we were on opposite sides, but we were never on the same side. But you carefully protected my identity and told me that we weren't enemies no matter what. At that time, I really wanted to pull you into my arms and tell you that we weren't enemies. Only my identity wasn't clear and I couldn't make any promises. But I did regret it. If I knew that I would love you this much, I would have chosen to leave EMP and the superintendent. I wasn't willing to be a double agent, I just wanted to be by your side and wander the world with you. It was a pity that we didn't have that chance later on, even if I used all my strength. The day you left, there was a large amount of rain. The doctor said that you were heavily injured and adding in the severe infection from leaving the sterile room, it caused your heart to stop. The moment my death was announced, I only felt a buzzing sound in my head. Then, my mind went blank. I didn't believe that she would leave me like this. I thought that I still had a way, since the Permitha holy water could save me, it could save her. But when she saved me, she gave me all the water in the bottle. In this world, there was no more Permitha holy water. I needed time to study the large amount of literature on the Permitha holy water. It was a good thing that Wang Meng had left behind a lot of information on advancement, so I had time to study it. I secretly took her body and built an underground ice cellar. Then I used my previous power to officially establish Mu Qing. Thinking of Mu Qing, thinking of this life. I will always, always miss her. I will do my best to bring her back to life. But the time it took to study the Permitha holy water far surpassed my expectations. I thought that I would be able to see her in a few days, but I never thought that after 15 years, I still wouldn't see her. Too slow, really too slow. If double the number of people could shorten the time it would take for her to wake up, I would definitely do it. I know that what I'm doing is very cruel. I know that I'm the devil and will go to the 18th level of hell. I know that I'm crazy, that's right. I'm crazy. I'm probably crazy. Only a madman would do such a thing. But why? Why can't I exchange my endless reincarnation for her safety? As I lay dying, I kept thinking about what I had done wrong for God to punish me like this. The memories of our reincarnations slowly flooded into my mind. We've known each other for a long time, we've loved each other for a long time, and we've separated again and again. Pain seemed to have become a habit. The recovery of my memory reminded me of things from a long time ago. That seemed to be the scene of our first meeting. Although it was very hazy, I knew that those memories were real. Me and her, a story from 30,000 years ago. Ding, congratulations on bringing a soul fragment into the lead God space. 80 out of 100. Chapter 39:46. A welcome back, host. Luo Qingchen. She was back? Just what happened? Does the host want to see the scene of yourself dying? Yes/no, yes. Very much. It's a bit long, the host needs to be prepared. Alright. Scenes that were like movie clips flashed in front of her eyes, and the more she looked, the more sad she felt. She felt that Big Brother Jiu Xing leaving her each time was a very painful thing for her. But now that she saw Du Jiu Xing being abandoned, she understood that perhaps this was what endless despair and pain looked like. Du Jiu Xing left first, and she could return to the chaos space after finishing everything, waiting for the next time to meet him. At least, in her world, she still had something to look forward to. She still had expectations in her heart. Du Jiu Xing's 15 years were just a few hours in the system. But she felt an inexplicable pain in her heart, and when she came back to her senses, her face was already covered in tears. When will I reach the end? Her eyes trembled. This was her first time crying in the chaos space. I feel that. I can't hold on any longer. After experiencing so many disturbances, after experiencing thousands of years of time, he had finally come to a decision. There was bitterness and sweetness, but in the end it was all because she was with him, which was the only comfort left. After thousands of years of experience, she seemed to understand some things. 30,000 years ago, they must have done something that angered the heavens to have this kind of ending. She just wanted to see the end. Even if they turned to ashes, there should be an end. The host will know the truth soon, as long as the host seriously completes the mission. AI, you've been with me for all these years and your tone hasn't changed. You just have people complete missions every day. The host doesn't want to know what happened between you and Du Jiu Xing? I do. She narrowed her eyes, but I'm looking forward to the future. No matter what outrageous things they had done back then, the price they had to pay was even greater. Next mission. The following is the summary of the host's mission. Name: Luo Qingchen Plane Space. Confusing. You are the only light. Mission completion rate: 100% EXP. 8500/10,000 currently. There are 5 items in the portable space: 4/5 exquisite ring, 9-section moon whip, phoenix dance sword, universal medicine box. Permanent ability: Space and Time Freeze LV7 permanent ability. Teleport level 6 permanent ability. Telekinesis LV3 exchange points. 500 obtained a special ability bestowed by the Lord God one time. Can be used in any plane. The host's 60th mission panel is below. Appearance: 99 out of 100 stamina, 99 out of 100 intelligence, 99 out of 100 figure, 99 out of 100. In the next second, the image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission level: SSS experience gained, 500 female lead, Luo Qingchen male lead, Feng Qi supporting female lead, Ning Shuixin supporting male lead, Song Qinghan. Mission details: make the supporting male lead regret, make the supporting male lead regret, make the supporting male lead regret. 3 key points. Looks like the original owner of this story must have hated the male lead. When the host receives all the memories, she will know that it is natural for her to hate the male lead. Really? Yes. The memories are currently being sent. Please accept them, host. Luo Qingchen used a long time to accept the memories of the original owner of this story because she had experienced many planes. This was her first time feeling a kind of sadness that seeped into her bones. That was because she calculated everything to be by your side, but she was covered in wounds from love. Chapter 3947. One of the identities of the previous host was the daughter of the Song Kingdom's general. Everyone knew that she was the princess of the kingdom. She had a beauty that could cause the downfall of a city. Coupled with General Luo's status in the imperial court, many people came to propose marriage when she reached the age of 20. However, she didn't agree. There was a rumor that Luo Qingchen had become mute after recovering from a serious illness. She felt that she wasn't good enough for the people in the court and refused all the marriages. However, that wasn't the case. Even if she couldn't speak, with her beauty and General Luo's position in the court. She could marry anyone in her life and live a peaceful life. She was waiting for someone. She was waiting for someone whom she had wrongly given her heart to 10 years ago. There were 3 countries in the world. Other than the Song Kingdom, there was the Feng Kingdom and the Wu Kingdom. The Wu Kingdom had a secret technique called the body reconstruction technique. If a person wanted to look like a person, he only needed to drink a mixture of the person's blood and talisman water. After B's death, it would become day by day, slowly becoming it. No matter if it was the voice, appearance, or temperament. The previous host's real identity was the Witch of the Wu Kingdom. However, when she was 15, a young man gave birth to her under the claws of a cheetah. Since then, she had an obsession. Marrying him. However, she knew that the person who was good enough for the young man couldn't be a witch of the Wu Kingdom. Because he was the 4th prince of the Song Kingdom, Song Qinghan. Although he wasn't the crown prince, Song Qinghan had worked hard since he was young. His mother was the favorite of the Song dynasty's emperor and was the favorite concubine in the harem. The previous host knew that if she wanted to be Song Qinghan's wife, she had to be from the Song dynasty. The only person she had wronged or killed in her life was General Luo's real daughter. Perhaps it couldn't be counted as killing, but she couldn't be saved. Although General Luo's daughter had the beauty of Qinchen, her health wasn't good since she was young. Her life was in danger before she reached marriageable age. The general had no choice but to seek help from the leader of the Wu Kingdom. It was rumored that the witch of the Wu Kingdom was proficient in medicine. She could even bring the dead back to life with a golden needle. General Luo had no choice but to take the risk and send her to the Wu Kingdom. From the moment the original owner saw this woman, she knew that she couldn't be her. Because she was the daughter of a general of the Song dynasty, and because she had the opportunity to stand beside that man. In order to prevent General Luo from staying in the Wu Kingdom, the host said that she needed a year to cure her. During this year, no one was allowed to disturb him. General Luo agreed. The medicine she gave her could not save her life. Instead, it would worsen her condition. The original owner would never be able to forget the way she struggled on the sickbed. In fact, even if she didn't use this secret technique, General Luo's daughter would still die. She would only live for a few more months. However, her arrival in the Magus Empire had only hastened her death. The host used a year to replace Luo Qinchen. From then on, she was Luo Qinchen. And the story had only just begun. The second male lead Song Qinghan's mother was actually from the Wu Kingdom. Not only that, she was also the previous witch. In the past, the Wu people were defeated by the Song dynasty. After losing 4 cities in a row, the Wu Kingdom submitted a letter of surrender. They voluntarily became a vassal state of the Song dynasty, hoping that the Wu Kingdom wouldn't disappear from the world. At that time, the witch of the Wu Kingdom, who was Song Qinghan's mother, was sacrificed to the Song dynasty as a gift. Chapter 39-48. However, that was because Yan Ying was young and hot-blooded. She, who already had someone in her heart, gave her virginity to her lover the night before she left. That night, she got pregnant with Song Qinghan. Therefore, Song Qinghan was not the son of the Song emperor. He was the son of Yan Ying and an unknown man in the Wu Kingdom. No one knew about this except for the original owner. Once a witch turned red, the next witch would sense it. Therefore, every witch in the Wu Kingdom was chosen by the gods. Once the witch turned red, the next witch would inherit the throne. At the same time, the next witch would also be the first to know about this matter. The original owner was shocked. The entire Wu Kingdom knew that Yan Ying was going to be given to the Song Emperor as a gift. There was only one possibility for her to turn red at this time. Yan Ying knew that the original owner knew about this and immediately went to find her. At that time, the original owner was only 5 years old. However, the people of the Wu Kingdom lived 300 years longer than ordinary people. However, they were more mature than ordinary people and their beauty was eternal. Sister Witch, who did you do it with? You don't need to know. You just need to keep it a secret for me. Otherwise, I won't let you and your family off. After a long time, the original owner nodded. I won't tell you. The original owner answered seriously, but Yen Ing did not believe her. After she married into the Song Kingdom, she used witchcraft to make Song Qinghan be born a month earlier. Actually, he was born at full term, but everyone thought he was born prematurely. However, that was not the case. Days passed. To Yen Ing, the existence of the original owner was a hidden danger in her heart. Therefore, she wanted to send someone to kill her. However, the cheetah pounced on the original owner. Song Qinghan appeared. He gave birth to her under the cheetah's claws. Perhaps that was the true beginning of the story. After that, the original owner investigated Song Qinghan and found out that he was the son of the witch, Yen Ing. She also found out that he was not the son of the Song Emperor. Yen Ing soon found out about the original owner's investigation of Song Qinghan. She returned to the Wu Kingdom with the excuse of a visit. However, she found that the original owner was no longer in the Wu Kingdom. At that time, the original owner of the body had already used the body reconstruction technique to transform into General Song's daughter. Yen Ing and the original host met at an inn where the original host was about to arrive at the Song dynasty. Why do you want to investigate Qinghan? Why did he come to the Song Kingdom? Why did you use the witch's forbidden technique to become like this? Her three questions seemed to have entered the heart of the original owner. Because I love him and I want to stay by his side. Her voice was very pleasant to hear. Although it was still a little weak, it was as clear as a jade stream flowing through a spring. Who do you love? Song Qinghan. I don't believe it. If the witch of the Magus Empire used the body remodeling technique, she would definitely be punished by the heavenly gods and suffer retribution. She didn't believe that the original owner of the body would use a forbidden technique because he liked Song Qinghan. Only an idiot would do such a thing. Then what do I have to do to make Sister Witch believe me? The host knew that Yen Ing wouldn't believe her. After so many years, Yen Ing had schemed to climb from a gift to her current position. However, she knew the secret that could push her and Song Qinghan to the 18th level of hell in a single night. If she had stayed in the Wu Kingdom, Yen Ing might have given up after failing to assassinate her a few times. However, if she came to the Song country with the identity of General Luo's daughter, it would be like keeping a deadly poison by Yen Ying's side. Chapter 39-49. This poison could kill her and her son at any moment. No, she definitely couldn't. She had schemed for so many years, she definitely couldn't let this happen. Unless you can never say a single word, then I'll believe you. The previous host's expression didn't change at all. She only looked deeply at Yen Ing and then indifferently nodded. Prepare the thing. I'll be a mute for the rest of my life. Yen Ing was stunned. Although she had some thoughts in her heart, she still prepared the poison for the previous host in the end. The poison that would turn her into a mute. When she handed it to her, she drank it without another word. Because she knew that if she didn't drink the poison, Yen Ing wouldn't let her get close to Song Qinghan. Even if she was General Luo's daughter, she would do everything she could to stop her. In order to make Yen Ing feel assured, in order to let her go to Song Qinghan's side, the previous host felt it was worth it. She thought that this was the punishment for using the forbidden technique of the Witch Kingdom, the body reconstruction technique. But later she found out that she was really too naive. This was only the beginning, it wasn't the end. When the previous host married Song Qinghan, it was a snowy day. He held her hand as they stood in the snow, his eyes filled with gentleness. But she knew that he had already forgotten about her. In the past, he had already forgotten how he had saved her from the cheetah. On the wedding night, she had written a line of words on his palm. Why did you marry me? You clearly had a better choice. She knew that she was very stupid when she asked this question. Even if she wasn't a member of the court, She knew why Song Qinghan had chosen a mute out of all the beautiful and sweet women to be his wife. It was because she was the daughter of a Song dynasty general, so she could become Song Qinghan's wife. She knew everything, but she still wanted to ask, even if it was her. Because when I look at you, I feel like I've seen you before. Hearing Song Qinghan say this, the previous host smiled. Her smile was so bright and sweet. At that time, she thought that everything she did was worth it, because she felt so happy, like she was floating. Silly, what are you laughing at? Song Qinghan looked at her and said, Do you know how to serve your husband? She paused and shook her head. She was not clear about the matters between men and women. Then you sleep first. Song Qinghan looked at her and said, Tomorrow, I'll let the mama in the mansion teach you. The original owner was stunned for a moment, her eyes filled with disappointment. However, he still nodded. She didn't know why Song Qinghan didn't want to have sex with her, but she gradually understood, because he didn't want to have children with her, they couldn't do it as husband and wife. Since she married Song Qinghan, General Luo was his man. But in recent years, because the Song dynasty was gradually not as good as the Feng dynasty, General Luo's position in the court was declining day by day. He did need the Luo family, but the Luo family was not his last choice. It was just a stepping stone on his path to success. A year after the host married him, Song Qinghan officially replaced the crown prince and ascended the throne the next year. Before he ascended the throne, he said a few words to her. General Luo passed away last year. Now, Prime Minister Ning has the highest position in the court. I need to marry the Prime Minister's daughter and make her my empress. Song Qinghan looked at her and said, Shui Xian is a daughter of a noble family. She has a gentle temperament. She won't embarrass you. She was startled and wrote on his palm, What about me? You can still be the same as before, but the palace you live in may be far away. I'm afraid she won't be happy. Chapter 3950. This kind of answer made the heart of the original owner very uncomfortable, but she couldn't say anything. Even if she had thousands of words in her heart, she couldn't say a word. Because she was a mute who poisoned herself. And all of this was because she knew too much about Song Qinghan and Yan Ying's secrets. But so what? She loved Song Qinghan so much, how could she tell his secrets and betray him? If she had the slightest intention of betraying him, she wouldn't have poisoned herself before coming to the Song dynasty. But in the end, Yan Ying didn't believe her, and Song Qinghan didn't believe her. The first day the original owner moved into the cold palace, Ning Shui Xian moved into the Weiyang palace. She was in charge of the harem, in charge of the Weiyang palace. She knew that this queen would have a meteoric rise, but she didn't think that this queen didn't want to let her go. Even if Ning Shui Xian knew that Song Qinghan didn't have the original owner in his heart, she still cared. She cared that the original owner was his first woman. So, the original owner didn't have a good life after moving into the cold palace. Ning Shui Xian wasn't as gentle as Song Qinghan said, so she wouldn't make things difficult for her. Facts proved that she made things difficult for her for more than one or two things. It was almost equal to inhuman abuse. But the original owner endured it. She used so much effort and even killed people just to stay by his side. She thought that he would always be able to see her infatuation with him. After a long time, she could feel his good. But it wasn't like that. Song Qinghan could see her good, but he always turned a blind eye. You can't wake up a person who pretends to be asleep, and you can't move a blind person. Don't be afraid that a man doesn't love you, but he greedily enjoys your good, but still doesn't love you. This was the relationship between Song Qinghan and the original owner. The original owner was left with only sadness. The days in the cold palace were like years. There wasn't even leftover food, sometimes there wasn't even a rotten bun. She became thinner day by day. After a long time, she was almost using her youthful body to consume her life. And it was a double consumption one spring, Due to the Magus Empire's Magus Maiden having disappeared for a long time, the next Magus Maiden was unable to inherit the throne. Therefore, the Magus Empire found Yen Ying. At this time, Yen Ying had just stabilized the harem and Song Qinghan had just stabilized his throne. She felt rather uneasy that someone from the Wu Empire would come looking for her at this time. She immediately thought of the original owner, who was still in the cold palace, and felt that this matter must have something to do with her. That afternoon, she came to the cold palace to interrogate the original host. "Did you say something to the Wu Empire? Tell me the truth." The original owner of the body fell to his knees and shook his head desperately. Her body was very weak, as if she was only left with bones. When she knelt on the ground, the sound of her joints cracking could be heard. "If it wasn't for you, why would the Sorcerer Empire ask me about the witch?" Yen Ying glared at her fiercely and said, "Originally, I thought that since we are both from the Wu Kingdom, even if you knew the king's secret, I would still let you live a carefree life. But now, it seems that I can't keep you." Live a carefree life? She didn't know why, but when she heard these words, the original host found it very funny. Ever since she married Song Qinghan, she had never lived a carefree life. Never. This year in the cold palace had almost tortured her to death. Yes, she was dying. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 39:51. But it seemed that Yen Ying didn't want her to die naturally, but wanted to send her off personally. "Someone come." The host panicked and immediately took out a pen and paper to write a line. Her hands were trembling. The line of words wasn't very nice. "Let me see him. If he wants me to die, I will die." Yen Ying frowned as she looked at the original owner of the body. She was moved by her side profile. When she was the same age as her, she was also obsessed with the word love. But thinking about it later, how ridiculous it was. The man who made her bleed, she had already killed him. If it wasn't for him, she wouldn't have to live in fear in Song all these years. She was afraid that her matter would be exposed. She was afraid that Song Qinghan's hard-won throne would be in vain. The so-called love was just a joke compared to power. After an hour, Song Qinghan and Ning Shuixian had sex and then came to the cold palace. At that time, the host had been kneeling on the ground for more than an hour. He glanced at her for a moment before looking at Yen Ying and saying, "She's a mute. Is Imperial Mother worrying too much? She just can't speak. It doesn't mean that she can't write. She can still write and tell our secret." Yen Ying frowned and said, "Son, we worked so hard to get the Song dynasty. We can't ruin it because of this woman. In this world, only the mouth of the dead is the most strict." Song Qinghan was silent for a long time. He narrowed his eyes and said, "Break her hands and drive her out of the palace tomorrow." Yen Ying was stunned. After a long time, she nodded and said, "Okay." In fact, she didn't understand why it was tomorrow. But it was only one day later. It didn't matter. After a long while, the servants brought the 10-finger splints from the palace and used the punishment on the host. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart. In addition, the host's body was weak. The moment the splints were put, she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned pale instantly. Her eyes sunk and she fainted. "Do you need to wake her up?" the servant asked. "No need," Song Qinghan said. Although the host was unconscious during the execution, she still couldn't breathe because of the pain. It was as if all the strength in her body had been drained. It was as if she would step into the gates of hell in the next second. She didn't know how long had passed. She felt that she couldn't exert any strength. Even the feeling of pain was almost gone. Her breathing was like a gossamer thread. It was probably referring to her. That night, Song Qinghan drank a lot and walked to the cold palace. When the original owner heard the sound, Song Qinghan directly pushed her down. She was shocked. She wanted to resist, but found that she only had enough strength to open her eyes wide. Her bones made cracking sounds. "Why are you shocked? Why do you want to resist?" She pursed her lips tightly and didn't say a word. She only gasped for air. Right now, it was as if she would have to pant for a long time if she moved even a little. Song Qinghan looked at her shocked face and used all his strength to imprison her and kiss her lips. In the next second, she spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. In the end, Song Qinghan didn't continue. He carefully looked at her body. There wasn't a single place that was intact. Her breathing was very weak. It was as if it would stop in the next second. Little de. This servant is here. Call the imperial doctor. I will personally send her out of the palace tomorrow. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 39:52. Song Qinghan probably knew that her body wasn't well, but he didn't know it was this bad. He thought that she would be fine after taking some medicine, but at that time, the original owner's body was already incurable. It wasn't something that could be cured with just 1 or 2 bowls of medicine. The imperial physician was very surprised when he took her pulse. After being a doctor for so many years, he had never seen someone who was tortured to such a state. It was as if a gust of wind could blow her away. After the imperial physician treated the original owner for 2 hours, he ordered the medicine boy beside him to put on some rouge and powder for the original owner to make her complexion look better. The concubines in the cold palace around Fangzheng were going to leave the palace today. In order to prevent anything from happening, he had to take responsibility. It was better to be careful. Everyone thought that the original owner had safely left the palace, but the truth was that the moment she left the palace, she stopped breathing. That broken body of hers was something that she couldn't hold on for much longer. The reason why she waited until she left the palace was purely to fulfill the promise she once made. She wanted to come to the country of Song. She wanted to enter the palace of Song. She wanted to stay by his side until the last moment of her life. Unless she died, in fact, after the original owner died, because of her identity as a witch, she always had a chance to meet God. However, she gave up on this opportunity and allowed herself to completely disappear from this world. After Luo Qingchen received the original owner's memories, all sorts of feelings welled up in her heart. She wanted to say something, but she found that she couldn't move at all. She felt as light as a swallow. This was a very strange feeling that she had never felt before. System, come out. If this isn't a special plane, please don't play dead, okay? What does the host want to know? Why can't I move? Moreover, it's pitch black in front of me. I can't see anything. Because the world the host came to is a moment after the original owner died. Wait, what did you say, after death? Are you sure you aren't teasing me? Luo Qingchen said that she could understand that the SSS plane was difficult, but she had to go back in time to the original owner's death. Her death meant that there was no point in her coming here. Did the host forget? You have one chance to meet God. Then can I meet him now? Yes. Luo Qingchen thought that the so-called God would be an old man with a long white beard, but she didn't expect it to be a handsome man wearing a light blue robe. Your God. Luo Qingchen looked at him with a look of confusion. She blinked and revealed a look of disbelief. You really are the Lord of Hell, I've heard of you. He looked at her eyebrows, SSSSS. Lord of Hell. T-testes, T-T-T-T-S-T-T-T-T-T-S. T-S. So you T-T-T-T, since it's like this, I'll speak frankly. Luo Qingchen narrowed her eyes. What can you give me? Teet-teet-teet-est-est-est, all right. If stiest. How could've said the words the original owner couldn't. She had never lost before, so she would never back down. I don't want the original owner's body. All right. Chapter 39:53. The appearance can be the same. After all, the original owner's wish was for Song Qinghan to regret, so let him regret. All right. Exclamation point. Luo Qingchen held her cheek and looked at him in confusion. Why is everything good for you? Because I can't beat a certain someone, so everything must be good. Sky God looked into her eyes and smiled. Do you have any other requests? Then I'll use my own body. After I die, I won't be able to return to the chaos space, right? You can return, he said. The space itself can duplicate identities. It's probably the upgraded version of the body reconstruction method. Alright. Luo Qingchen shrugged and said, Where will I appear? Where do you want to appear? Luo Qingchen recalled the data on the bronze panel and said, Where is Feng Qi? Actually, there was no such person as Feng Qi in the original owner's world, so the male lead of this world was definitely not in the Song country. The original owner was a witch of the Wu country, but she had never heard of the name Feng Qi. Therefore, Feng Qi should not be in the Wu country. Since the world was divided into three and one of the countries was called the Feng country, then the male lead Feng Qi was naturally related to the Feng country. The crown prince of the Feng country is naturally in the Feng country. Sky God narrowed his eyes and there was a smile that could not be concealed on his lips. Then please send me to the place closest to Feng Qi. Luo Qingchen patted her clothes and there was a faint light in her clear eyes. I know you will say yes. After all, you can't beat a certain someone. She actually did not know who the certain someone Sky God was talking about. But since he had already agreed to the previous conditions, and the last one wasn't anything difficult, he had no reason to reject her. How close do you want it? Sky God's tone was a bit playful, but Luo Qingchen did not care. Naturally, it's at this very moment. As close as I can get. All right. In the next second, Luo Qingchen felt dizzy and a very familiar feeling came over her. 3 seconds later, there was a putong sound as Luo Qingchen fell into a very large pool. Moreover, the water in the pool was still warm. What the hell? Luo Qingchen instantly straightened her body, feeling the water rushing towards her from all directions. After that, a sharp sword was instantly placed on her neck. However, she was very fast and did not wait for the other party to completely imprison her movement. He then took a step back and used his qinggong to pull apart the distance between them. Even though it was only a second of confrontation, she could feel the strong aura of the other party, and that his martial arts were extremely high. However, when she took a step back, she realized that the distance between them had allowed her to see more clearly. She accidentally saw the man in front of her clearly. The next second, Luo Qingchen immediately lowered her head and said, I'm sorry. I might have gone the wrong way. Your Excellency, please continue. I will leave now. With her intelligence, she naturally knew that the person in front of her was Feng Qi, but she didn't expect that man called God to trick her. It was better to leave a way out for others in the future. Was there a need to be so ruthless? Host, the problem is, he is a god, not a human. What does it have to do with me what he is? I am more worried about what I should do now. Host, do you have a better idea other than running? After all, the host saw the male lead naked the first time they met. Do you think he will have a good impression of the host? Chapter 39:54. Brother, wait a minute. Luo Qingchen's eyes widened slightly as she looked at Feng Qi, whose eyes were filled with killing intent. She tugged at the corner of her lips awkwardly. I went the wrong way, really, I'm not lying to you. The moment he drew his sword, he had already put on a black coat. His phoenix eyes stared fixedly at her, filled with anger. Luo Qingchen expressed that if she was standing in his position, taking a bath very comfortably, and someone suddenly barged in, she would probably draw her sword as well. Who is it? Feng Qi's thin lips moved. Although it was only 2 words, one could still hear the extreme coldness and anger in his tone. Luo Qingchen. She blinked her eyes and introduced herself seriously. I've fallen in love with you. Just as she was about to change the topic and bicker with the other party directly interrupted her. Get to the point. Feng Qi frowned, clearly a bit impatient. Actually, what Luo Qingchen didn't notice was that while he was impatient, his ears were slightly red. This was the first time he had been seen naked by a little girl. And it was a completely unfamiliar little girl. She looked like someone from the Feng dynasty's palace. Am I not the point? Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said, "This is the first time we're meeting. Shouldn't you introduce yourself? Then what do you want me to say?" Feng Qi was slightly stunned. At this moment, he inexplicably felt that Luo Qingchen's words made sense. He was a bit powerless to refute. "Why are you here?" Feng Qi looked at her self-righteous appearance and actually felt a bit angry. Not just a bit, but very angry. A person appeared out of nowhere, and this person even acted as if everything had already happened and she couldn't do anything about it. How infuriating! Didn't I already say? Luo Qingchen saw Feng Qi's expression soften a bit and raised her voice even more. "I went the wrong way. You." Feng Qi was speechless. He was clearly a cold and arrogant monarch. He could clearly drag her out and tear her to pieces with a single order. However, she swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. "I can't help it," Luo Qingchen said seriously. "You can't blame me for this." At this moment, her heart was filled with joy. Perhaps it was because he suddenly remembered a sentence he had read in some books before. If you meet a particularly rude and unreasonable girl, then she must have a man who loves her very much. You are playing, he is laughing, warm life. You. Feng Qi was so angry that his face turned red. But looking at her clear eyes, his words became more and more powerless. In the end, he forced out 3 words, "Follow me." Luo Qingchen answered obediently and then followed Feng Qi. Feng Qi looked at her in surprise, then said, "Why didn't you talk so much when I asked you to follow? What else can I say?" She blinked her eyes and said, "I've said everything that needs to be said. I'm just waiting for you to let me go." Actually, this was just a provocation. She was asking the god to bring her to his side in the first place. She really didn't have any intention of leaving. She just wanted to see what kind of reaction a certain person, who clearly couldn't control his emotions and gaze, would have. "You want to leave just like that?" Feng Qi's expression darkened. "Miss, do you think that you can come and go as you please in my Phoenix Palace?" Pft. Luo Qingchen looked at Feng Qi's angry expression and couldn't help but laugh. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 39:55. She pursed her lips and deliberately said, "Does the king mean that you can't bear to part with me?" Without knowing why, she felt that Feng Qi was a bit cute. Deep down in his heart, he really wanted to show her his cold and decisive side. But the words he said were completely different from what he thought. It could even be said that he was a completely different person. That's not it. Feng Qi flicked his sleeve and turned around to say, "I just haven't thought of how to punish you yet. Then the king needs to properly think about it." Luo Qingchen gave a shrug and said, "After the fight just now, you should know that my martial arts aren't bad. If the king hasn't thought of how to punish me, I might run away." "You dare?" Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. To be honest, she wasn't surprised at all by this affection. Because just looking at Feng Qi's eyes, she could see the helpless pampering in his eyes. Meeting for the first time, this kind of gaze made her heart feel very warm. "I won't leave, I won't leave." Luo Qingchen obediently raised her hand and said, "After all, I am someone who has seen the king's noble body, I should be responsible for you." Luo Qingchen, you. This was the first time he had called her by her full name in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. His slightly raised eyebrows and slightly widened eyes made him look like a young man who had walked out of a painting. However, at this moment, he seemed to have fallen into the mortal world. Moreover, he had the emotions of a mortal. "What's wrong with me?" She blinked her eyes and looked at him with a harmless look as she said, Why does the king only say half a sentence? Can't you say all of it? After that, he closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, his face had returned to its cold and aloof state. He narrowed his eyes and said, "You don't really think that I won't kill you, right?" Every word was filled with coldness and gloominess. But in fact, this was already the limit of Feng Qi's pretense. When he said this, he was forcing her and himself at the same time. He wanted to force her to admit defeat. After all, he had never seen such a sharp-tongued young lady. Furthermore, he showed no signs of fear when facing him. Of course, the reason why she was fearless was probably because of her skills. She was right. Her skills were indeed very good. Although it had only been a second, Feng Qi was certain that if she wanted to leave the palace, no one would be able to stop her. However, he didn't want her to leave. He kept asking himself why, but he couldn't get an answer. Therefore, he pretended to speak in a cold and low voice in order to force himself. He wanted to know that he was a cold and decisive person, but anyone who touched his reverse scale would not have a good ending. The young lady in front of him had not touched his reverse scale at all. She was challenging his limits. Even so, he still couldn't do anything to her. Saying this was his last resort. As long as she begged for mercy a little, he would satisfy the king's ego. However, he didn't know that this so-called young lady had no intention of begging for mercy. She even opened her eyes and walked towards him step by step. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and lifted her eyes to carefully size up Feng Qi. After a long while, she finally replied in an incomparably calm voice, "Yes, you won't kill me." Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop teasing. Transmigration female lead. Prince Charming can't stop teasing. Chapter 3956. In that instant, Luo Qingchen could feel the change in Feng Qi's expression. From pretending to be indifferent, to shock, to anger, and finally to a helpless compromise. "You're crossing my bottom line, do you know that?" Feng Qi stubbornly maintained his frosty expression and looked at her, saying, "You have to know that no matter how skilled you are, even if you can leave the palace in the end, you won't be able to leave safely. The problem is that I don't plan on leaving." Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and chuckled. "Just now, the king said that he wouldn't let me leave. Why did he change his mind now?" As expected, the king's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea, impossible to guess. "That's not what I meant. Are you pretending not to understand, or do you really not understand?" Feng Qi raised his right hand and his slender fingers gently grasped her chin. He raised her face up to his level and said, "I will kill you." "You won't." Luo Qingchen still shook her head with a look of certainty, saying, "Whether it was just now, or the future king, the thought of killing me has never crossed your mind. All right. If you think I'm wrong, you can have your personal guards come and kill me right now." Luo Qingchen shrugged and said, "I promise I won't resist." Feng Qi was so angry that his originally cold face collapsed. He wanted to say something, but he realized that what he wanted to say and what he wanted to say were two completely different things. The two forces seemed to be fighting in his mind. Both sides were evenly matched, causing his words to be stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say a single word. Luo Qingchen looked at his handsome face that was flushed red with anger and finally chuckled, saying, "All right, King, I won't mess around with you anymore. I'm hungry, why don't we go eat first?" She was really hungry. After coming here from the chaos space for such a long time, including the time when she received the memories, she hadn't eaten anything, all right? How could she not be hungry? And even though this was the so-called space clone, this was still her body. She definitely couldn't starve. "What? You have the ability to break into the Feng dynasty's palace, but you don't have the ability to fill your stomach?" Feng Qi snorted softly. Probably because he saw that she was indeed quite slender, he frowned and asked, "What do you want to eat?" Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. After saying these words, Luo Qingchen wasn't startled. Instead, Feng Qi was startled by himself. What was he talking about? In the face of this kind of insolent person, whose every word and sentence could anger him half to death, shouldn't he be dragged out and beheaded in public? He actually asked her what she wanted to eat. However, even though Feng Qi was startled, he did not change his mind at all. Luo Qingchen casually took his hand and said, "King, ask the kitchen to bring up all the delicious food. I'm a very picky eater. Most of the good stuff won't enter my mouth." Feng Qi was stunned, standing there like a puppet. When Luo Qingchen took his hand, he couldn't move at all. He didn't shake off her hand. Instead, he had a feeling that he wanted to turn her hand around and hold it. Calm down, he had to calm down. There were all kinds of strange things in this world. If it was some kind of witchcraft, it was possible that it could confuse his mind. Only, he was very clear that he especially enjoyed this feeling of being confused. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Transmigration female lead. Male god, keep teasing. Chapter 39:57. It was as if she had fallen into a never-before-seen fantasy land. Step by step, she couldn't extricate herself. "I think you'll be full after eating a few steamed buns." Feng Qi still felt that it wasn't good for her to hold onto him like this. He frowned and grabbed her wrist, saying, "I haven't eaten yet either. You have to serve me well, otherwise, you won't be able to avoid today's punishment. That will depend on whether the Phoenix Palace's food is good or not. If it's good, I will definitely serve the king well." Luo Qingchen turned around with a smile on her face. Feng Qi looked at her and was a bit dazed. She was very pretty. Even in a plain white dress, she was still very pretty. She was like a fairy that had walked out of the mountains. She walked slowly and lightly, as light as dust. However, she couldn't open her mouth. After all, if she did, most of the time, she would be angered to death. The Phoenix Dynasty's food is famous throughout the world. Whatever you want to eat, I'll have the Imperial Kitchen make it for you tonight. Feng Qi waved his hand, saying, "Servants. This servant is here. Inform the Imperial Kitchen to set up a palace banquet." In the next second, the servants looked at each other and immediately said, "Yes." They didn't know who the woman standing next to Feng Qi was, nor did they know where this woman came from. They only knew that this woman wasn't simple. Since ancient times, the Phoenix Dynasty's emperors had never been attracted to women. This was something that the entire Phoenix Dynasty, whether it was the 70 or 80-year-old uncles or the immature children, all knew. It was precisely because Feng Qi didn't get close to women that there were very few palace maids in the imperial palace, let alone the harem. There was no need to recruit palace maids for matters that could be solved by eunuchs. This was a rule that Feng Qi had set since he became king. After they left, Luo Qingchen looked at Feng Qi and asked, "What is a palace banquet?" "A palace banquet with 108 dishes." Feng Qi calmly replied, but it gave Luo Qingchen a fright. "What? 108 dishes?" She held her breath and said with widened eyes, "Is it that exaggerated? It's too rushed for them to prepare now. 108 dishes, she probably wouldn't be able to finish them in a week. Every grain was hard work, there was no need to be so extravagant." "Will it?" Feng Qi narrowed his eyes slightly. He didn't know why, but when he saw Luo Qingchen's shocked expression at this moment, he felt especially happy. Perhaps it was because she had given him the impression that she had been too calm during the entire time. On the contrary, there was nothing in this world that she was afraid of. In fact, he didn't even fear gods or ghosts. Of course. Luo Qingchen looked at his eyes and smiled. "Actually, I suddenly feel that the king is right. I'll be full after eating a few steamed buns." "Oh, is that so?" Feng Qi immediately replied, "Since you think I have a point, someone." "Ah?" Luo Qingchen still wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by the sharp voice of the eunuch. "Your servant is here. There's no need to prepare a palace banquet. Just prepare a few steamed buns." "Yes." The eunuch stammered, "The dishes that are about to be ready." "Yes, yes, 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 yes," Luo Qingchen cleverly and decisively answered before Feng Qi could. "Since they're ready, don't waste them. Let me try the delicacies of your Feng dynasty." This. The eunuch glanced at Feng Qi. Feng Qi nodded slightly. "Do as she says." "Yes, transmigration female lead. Adonis, keep flirting. Transmigration female lead. Adonis, keep flirting." Chapter 39:58. Ronghua Palace. Feng Qi was sitting in front of her, sipping his tea while watching her eat. There was a faint sandalwood scent in the air. He narrowed his eyes and was in a very good mood. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. When the system's notification rang in her mind, she didn't forget to look up at Feng Qi. Feng Qi was a bit surprised. It was probably because he was happy thinking of her that she suddenly looked up and looked into his eyes. "Are you full?" Feng Qi's voice still had the cold emperor's voice, but there was a bit of gentleness in his words. This was probably the gentleness that he had for her. "No." "Then keep eating." He had to admit that he enjoyed this feeling very much. What kind of feeling was this? It was like something that belonged to him, but he didn't know why it had suddenly disappeared from his life. Then, there was a day when it suddenly came back. This was the feeling of regaining something that he had lost. Luo Qingchen looked up at him with a faint smile and said, "The king clearly knows that I'm not from the Feng dynasty, so why do you keep me here?" "I like it." Luo Qingchen was scared and the large prawn almost fell to the ground. "Your Feng dynasty's people. Are all this direct? Is this considered direct?" Feng Qi slightly raised his brows and said, "There's something even more direct. The Feng country is missing a mother queen, so I feel that you're very suitable. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 40%. In that instant, Luo Qingchen didn't almost drop the prawn, but rather the chopsticks. You. Oh no, the king, what did you say? You must have eaten quite a lot of silver for this meal." Feng Qi looked into his shocked eyes and there was a smile that was hard to hide on his lips. It's normal to need to repay a debt. "You." Luo Qingchen blinked and blinked again. "You're the ruler of the Feng dynasty. How could you set this kind of trap for a little girl? Isn't it embarrassing to not go?" "That's not right." "What's wrong?" Feng Qi took a sip of tea gracefully and said, "First of all, based on your skills just now, you really don't look like a little girl. Second of all, you will soon be the queen of the Feng dynasty. If you don't feel embarrassed, why should I? The king is the one who is wrong." Luo Qingchen shook her head with a deadpan expression. "Who said that a young girl can't have good martial arts? And the title of Empress of the Feng dynasty is such an important title. I'm afraid I can't bear it." Actually, she had just said it casually. She wanted to see Feng Qi's reaction, so she had purposely teased him. After all, it had only been a few hours, but his attention to her and his favorable impression of her was enough to prove that she had suddenly barged into his life and occupied an important position. "Don't worry, you can definitely bear it." Feng Qi slowly stood up and walked towards her. "I, Queen Feng Qi, only need to do a few things." "What?" "Eat, drink and be merry." She was slightly taken aback. Looking at his eyes, she couldn't help but smile. Luo Qingchen thought that even if it was love at first sight, it was probably just like this. It was just that the young man in front of her had a determined look in his eyes that made her feel especially at peace. Now that the so-called god had appeared, she was probably very close to the end. She really wanted to see what the two of them were like 30,000 years ago. End of chapter. Chapter 39:59. After a long while, Luo Qingchen looked up at him with a faint smile. "All right. Then I'll reluctantly agree with the king." The coronation ceremony was held 7 days later. The entire Feng dynasty, from the nobles to the commoners, was shocked by this. After all, in their eyes, Feng Qi was an emperor who didn't get close to women at all. There weren't even many palace maids in the entire Feng dynasty's palace, let alone a queen. After announcing the date of the coronation ceremony, the Feng dynasty fell into a state of celebration. Feng Qi pardoned the country and opened up the national treasury so that everyone could celebrate with him. After all, he was really happy. At the same time, the other two emperors also planned to visit Feng Qi in the Feng dynasty. The Wu kingdom and the Song kingdom had always wanted to visit, but because of Feng Qi's aloof personality, he wasn't interested in the relationship between the two kingdoms. After all, even if the Wu kingdom and the Song kingdom worked together, they couldn't take down a single city in the Feng kingdom. With such a huge difference, the Feng dynasty didn't even bother to meet them. However, this time, Feng Qi unexpectedly agreed with the envoy's suggestion. For a moment, both the Song kingdom and the Wu kingdom were extremely nervous. Especially the Song kingdom. These years, the Song kingdom's military strength was declining year by year. Plus, there were conflicts inside and outside the imperial court. If the Feng kingdom attacked one day, the Song kingdom wouldn't be able to stop them. Therefore, both Song Qinghan and Yan Ying felt that they couldn't miss this opportunity to be on good terms with the Feng dynasty. I heard that the Wu kingdom will also send a great wizard. Han what do you plan to do? Ever since Luo Qingchen died, Yan Ying's complexion improved a lot. Now, when she talked about the Wu kingdom, she didn't have any fear. The only person in this world who knew their secret was dead. Her son would sit firmly on the throne that belonged to him. She would never have to worry. Mother, do you think that I should go myself? Song Qinghan frowned. There were many internal problems in the imperial court now, and the conflicts between the factions were getting worse. If he went to the Feng kingdom, there would be a lot of things to deal with when he returned. However, his mother's worries were normal. If the Feng dynasty wanted to attack them, the Song dynasty wouldn't be able to fight back. They had to go on good terms, of course. In order to show our sincerity, Mother and the Queen will go together. Yan Ying said earnestly. Right now, the Phoenix dynasty can be said to be the ruler of the world. If the Song dynasty wants to peacefully pass 100 years, listen to Imperial Mother. I understand. Song Qinghan faintly nodded and said, Mother, please inform the Queen for me. Although his voice was very respectful, there was an inexplicable coldness in it. Yan Ying was smart, so she naturally understood it immediately. Recently, I have rarely seen you go to the Queen's bedroom. Did something happen? Imperial Mother is worrying too much. The corner of Song Qinghan's mouth curled into a strange sneer. We rarely went there in the past. Recently, we have been busy with state affairs, so we rarely go to the harem. Honor has worked hard. Imperial Mother knows that it wasn't easy for you to reach this point. Yan Ying gently patted his shoulder and said, Nothing in this world can be perfect. Do you know why Imperial Mother made that decision that day? Luo Qingchen had clearly been in the Song dynasty for so many years. Even if she wanted to exterminate them, she didn't have to wait so long to make this decision. End of chapter. Chapter 3960. Moreover, Yan Ying was very clear that Ning Shuixin had a strong enmity towards Luo Qingchen. She had already used all means to torture her, to the point that she was about to die. Even if she didn't do anything, Luo Qingchen wouldn't have much time left. But in the end, she still chose to do something. The reason was very simple. Luo Qingchen couldn't live in this world anymore. Even if she didn't have much time left, she couldn't wait any longer. Because she found that there was something wrong with Song Qinghan. He would often sit alone in the imperial study and ask everyone to leave. He could stay alone for a day. No one knew what he was drawing, and no one knew why he asked everyone to leave. They only knew that he didn't even want to see Ning Shuixin. Yan Ying felt strange, so she took advantage of Song Qinghan's absence to go to the imperial study to take a look. Little did she know that Song Qinghan had been drawing a person all along. She had all kinds of expressions, wore all kinds of clothes, and showed all kinds of smiles. This person was none other than Luo Qingchen. Yanning knew that there were some decisions that had to be made. Luo Qingchen had to die. Since ancient times, emperors were fickle. Only the more fickle an emperor was, the more stable his country was. Once his heart sank, many things would be out of his control. He should be a famous emperor for all eternity. He absolutely couldn't be defeated by any woman. After Yanning said this, Song Qinghan hesitated for a long time. In fact, he should say that he didn't know. But now that she was sleeping underground, he didn't want to lie about anything related to her. He didn't want to lie to anyone, including himself. I know. After a long time, he responded to Yan Ying's question. Yanning was stunned for a moment. She didn't expect Song Qinghan to answer so decisively. It was as if he had already said that he liked Luo Qingchen, and didn't want to hide anything. Yanning closed her eyes. After a long time, she sighed deeply and said, "It's fine. She's already gone. If you want to keep some things in your heart, then keep them there. Your son will always keep them in my heart," Song Qinghan said in a low voice. When he said this, he felt relieved in his heart. The feelings that he couldn't admit all those years ago, he finally admitted it so decisively on the day she died. He actually loved her, but he had a lot of things that he had to do. Han you should be very clear that if you had stopped her from drenching her finger, I would have listened to you, and you could have saved her. Yan Ying analyzed Song Qinghan's inner thoughts bit by bit, but you didn't stop it because you knew that the mouth of a dead person is the safest in this world. Silence. A long silence. Song Qinghan clasped his hands behind his back and walked out without saying a word. Yan Ying was right. He was the one who did not want to save her. Now, no matter how many emotions he had in his heart, they were all meaningless. He was the one who made the decision, so there was no point in regretting it. At the same time, in Weiyang Palace, Ning Xuexin was informed that she would go to the Feng country with Song Qinghan to attend the Empress conferring ceremony of the Feng dynasty. She was especially happy. Since the death of Luo Qingchen, she felt that not only did her position in the palace not rise, but she was also getting less and less valued by Song Qinghan. Actually, she knew that the reason Song Qinghan married her was only because she was the daughter of the Prime Minister. He needed the Ning family. He needed the Ning family to help him sit on the throne, not her. End of this chapter. Chapter 3961. However, she would always think that at least Song Qinghan treated everyone equally. Didn't he treat Luo Qingchen the same way back then? When he needed to rely on the great general's power, he treated Luo Qingchen very well. However, when the great general gave the talisman to someone else, he directly abandoned her. In the cold palace, she thought about Luo Qingchen day and night as if she was tormenting her. Song Qinghan never sent anyone to find her. Because of this, she always felt that Luo Qingchen was not important in Song Qinghan's heart. However, Ning Xuexin didn't know until she died. Some people's souls still lived in another person's heart even after they died. Moreover, they lived a wonderful life. She also saw the portrait that Yan Ying saw. However, she only saw it after Luo Qingchen's death. Those eyes were covered with white gauze. She felt disgusted after looking at it a few more times. She hadn't spent time with Song Qinghan for a long time. Now, the Song Emperor and Empress were going to the Feng dynasty to participate in the coronation ceremony. Finally, she had a chance to spend time with him instead of being rejected outside the imperial study. 3 days later, Song Qinghan arranged the matters at hand and went to the Feng kingdom with Ning Xuexin and Yan Ying. During this time, Yan Ying also received a letter from Brother Fei from the Wu kingdom. The content of the letter was roughly that the person who came to congratulate the Wu kingdom was Elder Gu. He was the most senior elder in the Wu kingdom. However, logically speaking, The witch should be the one to participate in the coronation ceremony. However, the strange thing was that even though Luo Qingchen was dead, the next witch still hadn't appeared. At first, Yening thought that Luo Qingchen's death had angered the god and delayed the appearance of the next witch. However, as time passed day by day, the witch still hadn't appeared. This made Yening more and more worried. Therefore, before going to the Feng dynasty, she sent a letter to the Wu people, asking them to find the next witch as soon as possible. However, she was also very clear that the next witch wouldn't appear just because she said so. Her appearance required the right time, the right place, and the right people. Perhaps she needed the permission of the great heavenly God. "Mother, why do you look so gloomy? Did something happen to the Wu people?" Song Qinghan glanced sideways, and a glimmer of light flashed in his deep eyes. Actually, he knew that he shouldn't have asked, but he couldn't help but remember that she was once the saintess of the Wu nation. It was as though knowing more about the Magus Empire would allow him to get closer to her soul. "Nothing." Yening shook her head gently and said, "It's just that the next witch hasn't appeared yet. The elders of the Magus Empire are worried." Hearing the word witch, the look in Ning Shuixin's eyes suddenly changed. She pursed her lips and said, "Mother, is it possible that the woman left a curse when she died, so, shut up." In the next second, Yening scolded, "Wu people are not people you can talk about like this. How improper." Yan Ying's suddenly raised voice and her cold and angry tone made Ning Shuixin stunned for a moment. She hurriedly said, "Imperial Mother, please forgive me. Shuixin knows her mistake. I shouldn't have talked about the Magus Empire's witch." "Humph." Song Qinghan snorted coldly. There was a dark glint in his eyes as he said, "After arriving at the Feng Kingdom, please pay attention to your status. Now, whether it's the Magus Empire or us, in terms of strength, we're only vassal states of the Feng Kingdom. If you say something wrong, you'll destroy the entire Song Kingdom." Song Qinghan paused. There was a sharp glint in his eyes as he said, "You can't afford it." End of chapter. Chapter 3962. Along the way, Song Qinghan and Ning Shuixin looked at each other without saying anything. Ning Shuixin thought that she could use this trip to get closer to Song Qinghan so that the emperor would not be so cold to her. But Song Qinghan basically did not say anything to her along the way. He just looked out of the window. He could look at the barren rocks and similar scenery for a long time. He would rather look at the scenery without any beautiful scenery than take another look at her carefully dressed up. Why was that? Why exactly? "King, do you need a blanket? It seems to be getting colder and colder along the way." Ning Shuixin's voice was very soft, as if she was playing with cotton. Generally, men would not be able to resist such a soft voice. But Song Qinghan did not seem to have this feeling. Instead, he frowned and said, "No need." Cold, resolute, and even a trace of impatience. There was not a trace of warmth in her voice. Ning Shuixin was startled. A mist appeared in front of her eyes. She bit her lips, but still swallowed the words on the tip of her tongue. She swallowed all the grievances into her stomach. She kept telling herself that she must stay calm. Even if Song Qinghan had another woman in his heart, so what? That person had already turned into dust and no longer existed. The words Luo Qingchen no longer existed in this world. She did not need to be afraid, nor did she need to panic. She had nothing to fear at all. Along the way, Ning Shuixin talked to Song Qinghan intermittently, but he almost ignored her. Instead, he kept looking outside. His thoughts seemed to be pulled away little by little. He did not know why, but the closer he got to the Feng Kingdom, the more he felt his heart palpitate. He always felt that his heart was full of desolation, but he had nowhere to release it. "King, it's late. The snow is too deep ahead. The Empress Dowager is tired from the journey. She wants to rest for the night." "Okay. Yueli Inn." Because of the remote location, there were not many guests in the inn. Uniquely intended to send everyone away and book the entire inn, but he was stopped by Song Qinghan. The wind and snow are too heavy. It's not safe to spend the night outside. Song Qinghan said, no need. Since we are going to the Feng Kingdom with this identity, we don't need to be extravagant. Yes, King. Master. If it was in the past, Song Qinghan probably wouldn't have made such a decision. But now she would. He didn't know when it started, but he also wanted to become better. If only she knew in the netherworld, if only she could see, maybe he could change for the better. Maybe if she was still alive, he would treat her differently. It was snowing heavily outside the window. Ning Shuixin knocked on the door of the inn. Is the king asleep? I was worried that the weather would be too cold, so I took. The door opened with a bang, and Eunuch Li walked out and said, the king is already asleep. Your Highness, please go back. Are you asleep so early? Yes. Ning Shuixin held the heater in her hand, and her face gradually darkened. The weather was very cold, and her eyelashes were covered with frost. But even so, it was not as cold as the coldness in her heart. Then let the king have a good rest. Don't think too much. Take care, Your Highness. Ning Shuixin turned around and slightly nodded. She took a deep breath and let her tears flow back into her heart. Maybe she would have to spend the rest of her life like this by his side. But this was also good. At least she was still by his side. End of this chapter. Chapter 3963. Song Qinghan was lying on the bed. The bright moonlight shone through the window onto his face. He suddenly didn't feel sleepy anymore. Suddenly, he seemed to hear an intermittent female voice. It seemed to be calling for help, although it wasn't very clear. He frowned and looked at the door of the room. In the end, he decided to jump down from the window. It was already so late. If she was by his side, she definitely wouldn't want him to disturb others. Squeak, 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 squeak. The sound of cicadas came from the surroundings. In such a quiet night, it gave people a very pleasant feeling. Song Qinghan walked towards the direction of the sound, and stopped in front of a woodshed. Save! Save me! A woman's voice came from the woodshed. It was stuttering and couldn't be heard clearly. But what was certain was that the other party's voice was very weak. Is there anyone inside? The woodshed was quiet for a moment. Then, an even louder voice came out. Save me! I beg you! Song Qinghan frowned and kicked open the door of the woodshed. What entered his eyes was a woman wearing white clothes. Her face was very pale. Her long hair covered half of her face, but it didn't cover her eyes. She had a pair of beautiful eyes. And this pair of eyes was a little similar to hers. Sir! Sir, save me! Probably because the woman's voice was too loud, or maybe because Song Qinghan kicked too hard, the inn's boss and lady boss were all called over. The boss's face was very ugly, and the lady boss's face was even uglier. It's you again, you little demon. You always use your charm to bewitch a married man. Why are you so cheap? The lady boss, Chun Hua, said while preparing to go forward and slap her. Song Qinghan frowned and very seriously and decisively protected her behind him. He didn't know why, but when he looked at this pair of eyes, he would always unconsciously have a side view of her. It was as if she stood in front of him, looking for the last bit of protection, the last bit of warmth. But the Song Qinghan at that time pushed her into the fire pit, not leaving her any chance to live. During those years in the cold palace, she was so desperate. Even when she was about to die, he didn't let her go. I'll buy this person. Song Qinghan's voice was very cold. The boss immediately said, This is our inn's signature maid. She's not just anyone. In the next second, a secret guard standing not far away rushed up and placed a long sword on the boss's neck. The boss was shocked. He knelt down and said, Hero, please spare my life. Please spare my life, humph. Song Qinghan coldly snorted and said, Today, I won't kill you because of this lady. However, don't even think about keeping your inn open. Don't, Hero, don't, Chun Hua shook the fat on her body as she knelt down and said, Hero, this is a small business. If you like this kind of girl, Ah! Before Chun Hua could say anything, Song Qinghan had already taken down the sword of the guard standing beside her and slashed towards her arm. Using all of his strength, blood splattered everywhere. If you want to die, you can continue. Song Qinghan's voice was very cold, without a trace of warmth. The lady standing behind him nodded slightly and looked up at him with tears in her eyes. This was the first time since she was born that she was protected by a strange man like this. There was an impulse in her heart. No matter what happened in the future, she would follow this man. If he wanted her to give birth, she would give birth. If he wanted her to die, she would die. End of chapter. Chapter 3964. Hero, please spare my life. Hero, please spare my life. The innkeeper kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. The innkeeper's eyes had already turned white, and she was about to faint from the pain. Song Qinghan didn't look at them anymore. He directly took the hand of the woman behind him and walked forward. Her foot seemed to be injured. He walked a little fast, but she couldn't keep up. Song Qinghan frowned. He squatted down and picked her up by her waist. She was slightly stunned. She widened her watery eyes and said, "Sir, I can walk by myself. Is it very painful?" Song Qinghan's voice was very gentle. He looked at her eyes and brows, and memories began to be pulled endlessly. A few seconds later, his empty eyes were suffused with a touch of frost. He slowly put the woman down. "Take her to bandage her wound." Song Qinghan glanced at her eyes and said, "Give her enough money and escort her to the nearby town." "Sir." The woman bit her lip and suddenly knelt down. "My name is Rir. If you don't mind, you can take me with you. I'm willing to serve you for the rest of my life." "No need." Song Qinghan lowered his eyes and said, "I'm not from the Feng Kingdom. It's meaningless for you to follow me. I don't need it." Song Qinghan didn't say anything more and turned to leave. Just as Rui was about to get up and follow him, she was suddenly stopped. "You're called Rir, right?" Tao Hua's voice was very sharp. Her red phoenix eyes looked particularly cold under the moonlight. "Yes, our concubine invites you, ma." "Concubine?" Rir looked very nervous. She nodded and said, "I'll go with you." Slap. A crisp slap sounded. Rir, who was kneeling on the ground, was directly knocked down. Rir felt her vision go dark. A few seconds later, she came back to her senses. She bit the blood oozing from the corner of her mouth and said, Rui doesn't know how I offended madam." "How can the little fox not know?" Tao Hua grabbed her collar and said, "When you bewitched the king just now, you looked very much like the bitch our concubine hates. Unfortunately, even though that person was so lucky, he still died in the end. Moreover, it was a tragic death, let alone you." "Your Highness." "King." Rui's eyes widened in surprise. You are." "I am the Empress of the Song Nation. The person who saved you earlier is the Emperor of the Song Nation." Ning Shuixin took a sip of tea, narrowed her eyes and said, "These are all identities that you can't reach in your next life." Has never thought about having any status. She pursed her lips, her eyes misting up as she said, "Rare only wants to stay by the side of my savior. Rare can also serve husband, serve Nyang Nyang." "Heh." In the next second, Ning Shuixin sneered and stepped forward. She casually took a hairpin and forced Rare to raise her head. "Do you think someone of your status is worthy of serving me? You should know that this consort's maidservants are all Sanchi Bao Yi. You're not worthy." As soon as her voice fell, Ning Shuixin used the hairpin in her hand to scratch Rui's face without hesitation. "Ah!" Rui screamed immediately. Just as she was about to scratch a second time, Song Qinghan's extremely cold voice sounded, "Stop." He strode forward and stood directly in front of Rui saying, "Ning Shuixin, don't challenge my limit." End of chapter. Chapter 3965. At this moment, Ning Shuixin could even see other emotions in Song Qinghan's eyes other than indifference and decisiveness. That was killing intent, Ning Shuixin felt that if Song Qinghan had a sword in his hand at this moment, he would probably put it on her neck. In the past, even if I wanted to punish someone, the king would never do anything. Ning Shuixin took a deep breath and her tears fell. But now, the king said that I challenged the king's limit because of a lowly woman. Humph. The next second, Song Qinghan snorted. Haven't you done a lot of shameful things all these years? She's just an ordinary woman. Why do you have to? What about the king? Ning Shuixin bit her lips and cried, Your Majesty saved her like this, isn't it because her features are similar to that person's? At this moment, not only was Song Qinghan stunned, even Ning Shuixin, who had spoken those words, was also stunned. That person had been between them from the beginning to the end. No matter if she was the daughter of a general, a concubine in the cold palace, or a dead person in the cemetery, she would always be between them. So what? Song Qinghan narrowed his cold eyes and said, I have 3,000 beauties in my harem. Any woman I want has nothing to do with you. After saying that, Song Qinghan stopped looking at Ning Shuixin. He picked up Rui'er again and walked toward his room. Ning Shuixin looked at his back and sat down on the ground. Suddenly she felt that she was very stupid. All this time, she thought that as long as she got rid of Luo Qingchen, as long as Luo Qingchen died completely, she could occupy all the space in Song Qinghan's heart. But today, she realized that it was her own wishful thinking. What a ridiculous idea. Luo Qingchen's appearance might have been in that man's heart for a long time. In the room, Song Qinghan asked Eunuch Li to bandage Rui'er's wound. She lowered her head subconsciously and didn't dare to look at him. You don't have to lower your head. Song Qinghan looked at her and said, Life is just a bag of skin. You don't have to feel ashamed because it's incomplete. You're not ashamed at all. He said this to himself, as if he was talking to Rui'er, but also as if he was talking to himself. If that person could see this, their impression of him would definitely change. Recently, he didn't know why, but he always wanted to be kinder and protect someone. He wanted to exude a righteous aura from head to toe. He wondered if he could make it up to her. Or perhaps, this way, he could be closer to her. But now, what was the use of him getting closer to her? She was no longer in this world. She would never come back. Your Excellency's status is so honorable. Rui'er really can't accept your words. I've changed my mind. From now on, you'll follow me. Song Qinghan said to Eunuch Li, Prepare a clean set of clothes for her. It's too late today. Have the imperial physician come over tomorrow to change the medicine. Yes, my lord. Eunuch Li cleared his throat and said, Miss Rui'er should change the way you address me. You should call me king. There's no need for that when we're outside. Song Qinghan glanced at the moon and said, You'll rest in this room today. It's almost dawn. I'll go out for a walk. King didn't sleep all night. Rui'er only needs an ordinary room, or a woodshed, fine. Song Qinghan looked at Eunuch Li and said, Go get the clothes. This girl will stay in this room with me today. End of chapter. Chapter 3966. Reincarnated Witch. The Phoenix Dynasty's Empress counterattack, 1 out of 1. The candlelight swayed gently as it leaned against the bright moonlight. The chirping of cicadas could be heard, making it seem exceptionally quiet. Rui'er was injured, so Song Qinghan left the bed to her and made a mattress on the floor. He wasn't sleepy. He couldn't sleep at all. His mind was filled with the things that had happened in the past, the things that had happened with that person. Is there something on the king's mind? Rui'er's clear and sweet voice startled him. His memory was stretched out again. Yes. Song Qinghan didn't know what was wrong with her. She actually admitted it. If Rui'er's guess is right, the king saved me because he thinks I look like someone, right? She touched her face gently, feeling inexplicably sad. Yes. He admitted it. This emperor wants to become someone that she yearns for. Song Qinghan didn't know whether he was talking to Rui'er or himself. The one who can stand by her side when she is in the most difficult time. Ah. Rer sighed and said, "That girl is really enviable. Are you jealous of her?" Song Qinghan said with a self-deprecating smile, "She's already buried deep in the earth. She's gone." When Song Qinghan said this, she felt that her tone was particularly desolate. It turned out that there were many things that one would only know how to cherish after losing them. Ruier didn't say anything more. The night wind was very cold and the moon was very dark. At the same time, in the Phoenix King Palace, Luo Qingchen felt that she had gained some weight these days, and the tailor-made queen's clothes felt a little tight now. "Your Highness, you've gained a lot of weight." Gigi, who had taken her measurements, smiled. Luo Qingchen immediately glared at her. She raised her head and knocked on her head. "What are you talking about? Don't you know that it's rude to call someone fat?" "I know I was wrong." Gigi pouted and said softly, "But you'll still look good even if you're fat." "No, This consort isn't fat." Luo Qingchen shook her head as she refuted firmly. But it was only a firm tone. Her body revealed the weakness of her tone. She had indeed gained a lot of weight. She felt that even her head had grown bigger. She couldn't even wear the phoenix coronet anymore. No, this must be her illusion. She wasn't fat. Fat paper will never admit that he is fat paper. Don't come out if there's nothing important. I find you an eyesore. Host, haven't you noticed that there is no such title as Zhen or this palace in the state of Feng? I advise the host not to expose herself. Thank you for your reminder. Goodbye. She didn't know why, but sometimes she felt that her system was cute, but most of the time it was very annoying. Your Highness's waist may need to be adjusted. Otherwise, it will really be too tight. Gigi pursed her lips and blinked. Don't worry, Your Highness. Even if it's a size bigger, Your Highness is still very thin because Your Highness has always been thin. He. Luo Qingchen gave a shrug and rolled her eyes at Gigi. If you said this earlier, I might have believed it, but now, Your Highness, I won't change it, I won't change it. I won't change it. Luo Qingchen put her hands on her waist and said, I can attend the coronation ceremony with one breath. I can also fast for a few days. Your Highness, Xiao Detzi requests an audience. Before Luo Qingchen could finish her sentence, Feng Qi's favorite eunuch arrived. What's wrong? End of chapter. Chapter 3967. Reincarnated Witch. The Phoenix Queen's Road to Counterattack, 2 halves. Empress, the king wants you to eat the new lychees with him, Xiaoda said. The king knows that the Empress likes sweets, so he prepared some other snacks. He said that the Empress will definitely like them. Lychees? Luo Qingchen's eyes lit up. It was rare to see lychees in this cold weather. She had eaten too many delicacies these past few days, so it was good to eat some sweet fruit. Yes, Empress. The king is waiting for the Empress to taste them together. Then lead the way. When Luo Qingchen got into the sedan, the system's voice rang in her ears again. The host was talking about going on a hunger strike a second ago, but the next second she's eating. She didn't want to be outdone. Was losing weight something that could be done in a day or two? Some people worked hard on this for their entire lives. Don't ask for too much. What if you fainted from hunger? Phoenix Goddess Pavilion. This was the place that Feng Qi liked to take her to. It was on the 2nd floor. Luo Qingchen lifted her dress and walked upstairs. She could smell the sweet fragrance as she walked. The next second, she couldn't help quickening her pace. Why are you running so fast? Feng Qi reached out and took her hand. No one will steal it from you. That's not necessarily true. Luo Qingchen ran into Feng Qi's arms and said, Gigi thinks I'm fat today. King, tell me, do you think I'm fat too? Feng Qi pretended to look serious and said to Xiaoda beside him, drag Gigi down and beat her 100 times. Don't. Luo Qingchen hurriedly said, King, why are you like this? Gigi serves me very well. The king really has a good eye for people. You. Feng Qi looked at her and said, "It's because you're too easygoing that the maids are so rude to you." However, he liked her like this. As long as she appeared, the harem would be filled with laughter. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. During this period of time, Feng Qi could increase her favorability towards him by eating a meal, and he could also increase her favorability by going out to play. She didn't seem to have done anything, but she had gone from 40% the day they first met to 80%. Seeing this scene, she couldn't help but silently sigh in her heart about what the original owner had experienced. She had tried so hard to obtain Song Qinghan's love. She had not hesitated to kill and use the body reconstruction technique. But in the end, he didn't even walk into the gray area in Song Qinghan's heart. How desolate is this? But between her and Feng Qi, it was always Feng Qi who took the initiative and walked towards her. Occasionally, when she was too lazy to move, Feng Qi would stay in her palace for the entire day and never leave. It was as if he wanted to spend all his time by her side. Always, always by her side. That's because the king doesn't like women. Luo Qingchen didn't forget to push all the blame onto Feng Qi. It's because of this that the entire harem is deserted. If I'm still strict with the maids, then the harem will probably only hear my chattering voice every day. Feng Qi replied and stuffed a peeled lychee into her mouth. While eating, she came back to her senses and said with trembling brows, "King, what do you mean by Because I suddenly feel that if the harem can only hear your chattering voice." He peeled another lychee and stuffed it into her mouth. It's pretty good. End of chapter. Chapter 3968. Reincarnated Witch. The Phoenix Dynasty's Queen's Counterattack, 2/3. What's so good about it? Luo Qingchen frowned slightly. Because her mouth was full of lychees, her words were muffled, but it still made her look very cute. Feng Qi gently stroked her head, his eyes filled with indulgence. Seeing that she was eating in a hurry, he didn't forget to pat her back and say, "Eat slowly. The king doesn't eat anything himself? I don't like sweets." Luo Qingchen suddenly thought of something. That youth didn't seem to like sweets. But no matter where he was, he seemed to have sweets around him. All kinds of sweets, whether he ate them himself or not, he would always have them prepared. He was like this no matter where he was, and Feng Qi was no exception. But why? He was such a cold and arrogant person, why did he like her so easily every time? The king. Luo Qingchen took his arm and leaned against him, asking, "Why do you like me?" She actually wanted to ask this question a long time ago. She wanted to ask him every time she met him in every plane. The system said that her mission was about to end soon. Then did that mean that she was already close to the truth? So it wasn't impossible to ask a question that had been bothering her for a long time before she got close to the truth. Feng Qi looked at her eyes. After a long time, he revealed a confused expression. "I don't know." He shook his head. "I only know that when I'm close to you, I feel very happy. When I look at you, I don't want to look away. When I leave your side, I feel very anxious." He paused and continued, "So at first, I didn't know if I liked you or not. I just wanted to be close to you. Then I slowly realized that maybe this is the so-called like." Luo Qingchen looked at his cold eyes and her lips curled into a smile that was hard to hide. He frowned in confusion and his eyebrows moved slightly. "What are you smiling about?" "Nothing, I just think that the king is very good-looking." Luo Qingchen gently raised her right hand and smoothed his eyebrows, saying, "I'll never get tired of looking at you. You're so beautiful that I'll never get tired of looking at you." He touched her nose lovingly, his eyes full of gentleness. 3 days later, in the morning, Song Qinghan and the others entered the Feng kingdom. Feng Qi did not welcome them with great fanfare. At the very least, he sent an envoy to lead them into the palace. This action was not giving face to the Song kingdom. After all, they were guests from afar. However, Song Qinghan was not in a position to say anything. Originally, He was the one who volunteered to come and congratulate the Phoenix King for finally having a queen. Although he didn't understand why the other party was acting so high and mighty, he was fortunately guided into the palace, so he wasn't too embarrassed. King Song, please rest first. There are many forbidden grounds in the palace, and Her Majesty's Mushue Pavilion and the Immortal Phoenix Pavilion to the west are forbidden places. We understand. Song Qinghan nodded and said, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Since I'm in the Phone Kingdom, I have to follow the Phone King's rules. I understand this point. Thank you, King Song, for your understanding. The envoy bowed and said, the palace has arranged for palace maids and eunuchs. The great shaman of the Wu Kingdom is in the palace next door. Other than the 2 places mentioned above and the imperial study, King Song can go anywhere he wants. Thank you, envoy. Then I won't disturb King Song's rest. Looking at the back of the envoy after he left, Ning Shueishin stomped her feet and said, what's the situation with the Phone Kingdom? Why does it look down on people so much? We came from afar to attend the coronation ceremony. Aren't we giving them enough face? End of chapter. Chapter 3969. Reincarnated Witch. The Phoenix Dynasty's Queen's Counterattack, 2/4. Shut up! Yen Ing angrily rebuked. Do you have the right to speak here? Imperial Mother, Ning Shueishin felt wronged. Forget about Song Qinghan's indifference to her, even Yen Ing had been indifferent to her during this period of time. What did she do wrong? King Phoenix has always been cold and aloof. He despises us and the Magus Empire to begin with. Song Qinghan frowned and said, for the peace and prosperity of the Song Kingdom, as a vassal state in their eyes, it is normal for us to be treated this way. Ning Shueishin sniffed. A faint mist flashed across her eyes as she said, I did it for the king. Please don't be angry, King, fine. Song Qinghan looked up and said, the day after tomorrow is the coronation ceremony. During these 2 days, everyone should stay in the palace. Don't go anywhere. Although the envoy had only mentioned the places they couldn't go to, Song Qinghan felt that this was the best way to avoid unnecessary trouble. This concubine doesn't want to go anywhere. Ning Shueishin frowned and said, it's so cold here. This concubine doesn't want to go anywhere. Song Qinghan no longer paid attention to Ning Shueishin's words. Instead, he turned to look at Rer and said, serve me and rest. Yes, King. Ning Shueishin widened her eyes. Before she finished her words, she had been glared at by Song Qinghan. Remember, you have no right to call yourself my concubine here, and I am not the king. Although he felt a little sad when he said this, it was the truth. Since they were in someone else's territory, they had to follow their rules. Mu Shui Pavilion. Luo Qingchen was half leaning on the soft couch, reading a book while eating sweet. When she looked in the mirror yesterday, she didn't feel that her face had gotten fatter. But when she looked in the mirror today, she felt that her face had gotten fatter. However, the pastries in her hands never stopped, and she drank cup after cup of tea. You're so lucky, Your Highness. There are so many officials and nobles attending the coronation ceremony this time. Gigi had complained that she was fat a few days ago, but now she kept giving her delicious food. It was probably because she had heard from the little palace maid that Luo Qingchen had almost been flogged, so she treated Luo Qingchen very well. Even though Gigi had always treated her well, they were still master and servant after all. But in the past few days, it had become a kind of morbid flattery. I am the queen of the Phone Kingdom. There is nothing strange about the princes, dukes, and ministers attending the coronation ceremony. Luo Qingchen did not care at all and continued to eat the pastries. Of course it's not strange for the nobles to be in the palace. Gigi massaged her back gently and said, the point is that the Grand Wizard of the Witch Nation and the King of the Song Nation are here. The Wu Nations. Luo Qingchen's expression froze. The teacup in her hand shook slightly. She glanced at Gigi and asked, what did you say? Which nations, not the next sentence. Luo Qingchen was shocked. You mean Song Qinghan came to the Witch Nation? Song Qinghan is the king of the Song Nation. Gigi was frightened by her gaze. She said nervously, not only is the king of Song here, but even the queen and empress dowager of the Song Nation are here. This time, they have shown enough respect to the Feng kingdom. He. Luo Qingchen gave a shrug and softly put down the cup in her hand. There was a cold look in her eyes as her lips curled into a cold smile. So the gods are still good to me. Those who should be here are all here. Good night. End of chapter.